All right. Welcome back, everybody. And get ready for the 2020 Fatal Blowout Ancient Cave Tournament Grand Finals. Once again, I'm Shadow Killer. I've been your host throughout this tournament. I want to thank everybody for hanging out and watching. I hope you've been having a good time. We're going to jump right into the race. I'm not going to go over the points and rules once again. But if you want to check those out, just go ahead and type !points in the chat to see the ways that our runners are going to be earning points. Before we begin, I want to make a couple quick shout outs to some of our community members. First off, I want to thank Eve. You've seen her in chat, I'm sure. She did basically all of the artwork you've seen today, from the title cards to the on-screen layouts and everything like that. So thank you, Eve, for all of your hard work. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if she's still in chat and she wants to link her Twitter, link her Instagram, anything like that, give her a follow. She does great art. She made some of my emotes. Very good stuff. Second off, I want to thank Real Critical, who helped me out with the background and the layouts for these races, and really kind of helped pull everything together for me. Just some nice little changes. I want to thank Kriegspire, who's been doing a ton of behind-the-scenes work. You've probably seen him in chat, but he's done a ton of stuff, and he's heading up the scoring and helping me out behind the scenes. But thanks to Kriegspire and everybody who's been keeping score and everything like that. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our runners for the grand finals. First off, we have Mike 34. We've got Dank Meats. We've got Squealer. All the way from Australia, we've got The Roth. And we've got Travictox, who was our wild card champion. Now, I think Meats and Squealer covered this in the last race, but all 5 of these runners have sub 1 hour times, and the sub 1 hour mark is kind of a big deal as far as the Ancient Cave goes. It's kind of a lot of runners' ultimate goal is to get that sub 1. If they're not pushing, for world record or anything like that, sub 1 is the big breaking point. So all of these runners are very skilled. They are very, very knowledgeable. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play this game. But like I said, I don't want to hold out too much longer. So I am just going to switch the audio real quick. And, well, maybe not. Okay, let's try somebody else. There we go. All right. Got the audio going here, and I am going to count down the runners if they are ready. We're going to give a 5 count, like always. All right, we will begin in 5, 4, 3. Oh, son of a gun, I did it again. I didn't put myself in there. All right, guys, you ready? All the runners ready? We're going to get started here. I already did the intros, but I was in the wrong channel. All right, wouldn't be me without doing that. All right, so I'm going to count you guys down in 5, 4, 3, 2. We got a false start here. Sorry. Mike, you started a little early. Go ahead and let's reset and get this going again here. False start. All right, let's try this again. How did I get in that channel? Anyway. All right, Mike, when you're ready to go, we'll get started. I'm bad at this. All right, we're going to start in 5, 4, 3. He's typing in his name. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Good Lord, that took too many tries. All right. Well, how about that, RC? All right, I'm going to pass it over to our commentators for this run. We've got The Ellison and Real Critical. Guys, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Shadow.
I'm excited to be commenting for the finals, guys. I'm The Ellison. Nice to see you all.
Yes, it's RC.
Heck of a run. We've got some real all-star champions here, and at a quick glance, if you you haven't looked at the people's party setups yet, you're going to see a lot of Gusto representation, which I'm pretty excited for.
Yeah, so across the board, the parties seem pretty similar, except for Dankmeats, who has chosen Tia as a replacement for Guy. Other than that, it's only the capsules that differentiate the teams. So I guess we could say we're looking at pretty balanced teams here. Well, for this pretty promising race, I will say. Definitely curious in what players are gonna do out of these finals.
One thing I'm sort of not really too surprised to see is that traditionally, especially earlier in the runs for the qualifiers and whatnot, the more any percent parties have been performing exceedingly well compared to the parties that throw a bit of variance in, just because they're a bit more difficult to work with, especially in a long-term setting like this. So seeing Meats bringing somebody different is kind of nice, because it does show even the littlest variety. Curse Lifter for Mike and Rice Shield for Traffic Talk. Some good stuff already. But unfortunately for Traffic Talks, who just found the Grace Shield, he can't use it. And that's the one thing I do like seeing about parties that bring girls, is that they have just a much bigger equipment pool to tinker with compared to what the any percent parties got.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, looking at the roster here, we got 5 players who are really well experienced with the cave. You just gotta know what you're up against as any of these runners. So I can definitely see going with a relatively safe choice here.
And in terms of point scoring too, another big factor is probably we're going to see a lot less emphasis on the side objectives and a lot more emphasis on getting to the jelly quickly, because you can get quite a few points just for getting there fast. You can get quite a few points if you don't have enough gear by just killing yourself at the end, as we saw Traffic Talks do a few minutes ago. But trying to get those side objectives like farming a charm fruit in the upper 20s, or trying to find blue chest gear, those may just be inconsequential when all you need to worry about is getting the 100 points for a jelly kill.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, one thing for those who don't watch cave runs every day, one thing that just happened in the wildcard race was the random party selection, which means both putting players up against a challenge that they probably hadn't practiced, deviously enough, and then, of course, also lowering the kill chances for the boss of the NGK, which is the jelly. So I'm hoping that even though we just didn't see any jelly kills, I mean, it was an amazing race nevertheless, I'm hoping we're definitely going to see some jelly kills in this one. And yeah, the party choices, in my opinion, reflect that players see that very similarly.
Now, one thing I'm always interested to see is that when in the early floors, you can find a bunch of items that seem relatively useless, like the big boomer and the fireball item, as opposed to the fireball spell. But some of these enemies early on, if you get stuck into a position where you have a little bit of difficulty getting a kill quickly because you don't have good equipment or any decent spell, you can use things like a big boomer and really quickly end battles. It's something that a lot of people don't utilize because it's just not something you traditionally experience needing to use in a run, but it's something I like to see. I kind of hope to see a couple of people use those items. And we saw a trick. I think it was for me?
Oh, for Mike.
Mike already getting some pretty decent stuff at the start.
Yeah.
Of course, it's how you finish the run, not how you start. But it never helps to find some good stuff early on, as opposed to an extra long staff that you're never really going to have any use for.
And of course, with some items that are only useful for the jelly, like the Deca Blade, it might not matter for the kill whether you find it on 15 or 98. On the Curse Lifter for Traffic Talks. But it matters in terms of how you're going to plan out your run. So if you find the Deca Blade really early, you know, for the rest of the run, you can get away with running more than you can when you're still missing your entire setup. So in that regard, I guess it's not too bad having Trick early.
An ice ring for Traffic Talks. For those unfamiliar with elemental rings, we did have a water ring in the previous run, but the ice ring is a big deal because not only does it boost the power of ice type spells by double of what their default power is worth. But it also, when equipped, boosts your agility by 10. And in case you haven't figured it out, agility is one of the most important stats that you can get in the context of the cave, especially when you have people that utilize deadly rods or fatal picks as your primary means of offense. That 10 agility can make a difference between life or death and you outspeeding something. Now there's a few enemies that are weak to ice too, later on especially the Hydoras, which drop the infamous Hydora rocks. They're weak to ice, and with Ice Valk or even Blizzard, the tier 2 ice magic spell, the power boost you can get allows you to kill them with much more reliability.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have an ice ring, even more so.
Yeah, the water ring unfortunately is only effective for boosting water magic, which is effective against, what, 4 enemies, I guess? 3 or 4?
Yeah, but
and they're all pretty worth it.
water ring was last run, so this run is an ice ring for Trev. I think so. Yeah, the other one is definitely going to be helpful, and it boosts agility on top of things, so probably the best are the elemental rings. And he finds champion to top it off as well.
Right away.
Yeah, so one other thing I realized is that there is already a sort of distinct style in running here. So Roth was already well into core floors here when I saw tank meets, especially, I guess, or at least for him, I noticed it still fighting horses and buffaloes. So
yeah, the differences between these two is if you run a turbo on the floors to get up to 11 through 13 and you can get your hands on an early core or two, then that can really boost your experience. But relying on that EXP grab can be kind of scary, and if you take the time to kill a few horses and eagles, it gives you just a few level ups, which can really help make a difference. Because being level 4 versus being level 1 as soon as you get to floor 13 or even 14 and get 0 cores can make a gigantic difference. But being level 7 or 8 isn't quite as big of a deal.
Yeah, and just to be clear about that, like, I'm giving all these runners here the benefit of the doubt as far as their strats go. Every one of these guys knows what to do, where to go, and what every decision means for the rest of the run. So, there's an Irish shoot for Mike.
The first Irish item of the run. And a black eye for Traffic Tox. That is another.
It's gonna be happy about that
item.
Yeah.
The IP of a black eye is pretty useful. It's a very powerful attack. It doesn't have the instant kill abilities, but it's just a pretty chunky move. So between the ice ring and the black eye giving his RD a huge agility boost, he's looking pretty good, assuming he can get a good amount of levels to deal with some of the faster enemies that come later on.
Yes, I mean, we got a lot of very detailed things to talk about already. Yes, just to get the bases out of the way really quick. This is a roguelike called The Ancient Cave. It's a side game of the original Lufia 2 cartridge, and the objective is to clear 100 floors and kill the boss at the bottom and collect a couple of points in between, for this tourney especially. You can look at those points with exclamation mark points, and you can use a couple of different commands that I don't know off the top of my head, but the points one is the one you want to look at the most. And, well, at the very least, to figure out what's going on. And also, Roth, I will assume Providence here.
Yep, just did.
And snags himself some 5 points here, so probably a strat with running fast.
If you're not too familiar with how Providence works, it takes you out of the cave and it lets you bring anything that you have that comes in a blue chest or an iris item out with you. The perk to that is if you have some good items, then you can take them out and restart and just have a few extra quick floors with a couple of decent weapons or items that you wouldn't have already had access to. You unfortunately throw away everything that you had that was in a red chest, so if you had found, say, a Decker Blade, some really good healing magic, you'd be dropping that. You wouldn't be able to utilize that at all, because you can't take those back in with you. But it does give you a few extra points in the context of this run, which is a pretty big deal, because as we know, these runners are very talented, so it could be as small as a 5 or 10 point lead that helps break the win when we get to the end of this run.
Yeah. I guess we can definitely expect a great race here, so as a matter of fact, you might notice me being here for the 3rd time as commentary, so I've I've been told that we would have liked to have one of these other guys here doing commentary, and as a matter of fact, I would have liked that as well. But alas, you guys have to deal with me now. Sorry.
You'll see Strong for Squealer, and he's doing something that you may not have even realized that you can do, but you can rearrange the positions of your spells in your spell menu for each individual character. It's pretty cool because you can take your higher priority spells and put them near the top, making them easier to access. That's a trend I've noticed Squealer just doing from time to time, and I'm sure there will be some people in chat groaning at the fact that he's taking the time to do it. But I can't question his system. It seems to be working really well.
I mean, yeah, whatever works, right?
Yeah.
So there is rally in the meantime for Mike. So as we've seen last run, having healing spells in general, of course, but especially revives is very important.
An
engage ring for Squealer.
Funnily enough,
the arguably most useless item.
Now, the engage ring, if you're playing in the context of the Ancient Cave through the main campaign, then you actually can utilize the engage ring a little bit, but it doesn't really do very much. A C ring, though, immediately after, that's a pretty good ring. It's another agility boosting ring. It changes your attacking element, so the element of your just general melee attacks to that of the C element. It really doesn't mean very much, but it does that. There's nothing in the game, from what I'm aware of, that is affected in a consequential or negative way by C element stuff.
Not directly, but indirectly, yeah. So another thing that happened is, well, okay, Dank just found champion as well, and Travitux had actually found Ice Walk, which goes very well along with his Ice Ring, so he's going to be very happy about that one.
Speaking of Travitux, you may have seen some interesting movement. He trapped Antares next to a chest in a wall and made it so that way, based on the direction he moved, he was only able to get a back attack on it because it wasn't able to change its direction. That's a pretty, I would say, an advanced movement technique, and if you're ever considering running the cave and looking for backup methods of getting experience, that's a great technique to utilize in terms of being able to catch yourself up when you're in a pinch and need a little extra EXP boost.
In general, I hope we will see again a couple of very interesting movement strats here. That's one of the things I personally found very interesting. It's definitely somewhere rewarding when you're running, both in terms of having fun with the game and, of course, proving on your runs. And we've seen a couple of interesting showcases in the wildcard race already. And with a couple of people here, I'm sure we're gonna see some more of that, as you just mentioned, Eli. So there is Zap for Mike now.
We got Zap for Mike. We have Fry for Dank Meats. The holy magic in this game is kind of weird because there's no tier 1 holy elemental stuff or spell. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
So a catfish jewel for the Roth.
Exactly.
All he has to do is use it, and he'll actually have gained himself 5 points for using one of the weakest attacks in the game.
Yes. The goal is shaken, not stirred. If you noticed from all the artworks, shout out to Eve again, there is a James Bond theme going on this year. And most of these goals, actually, if you look at the points table, are actually themed in that manner. That's something that gets way too little credit during these commentaries, so I figured I'd take the time finally on my 3rd attempt to mention that.
Interesting party room for Squealer over there. The deadly swords are not too much of a thing to worry about. These snakes are not something that you need to worry about, but the pumpkins to teleport around can be a little bit of a nuisance. He gets through pretty easily, but it's not too much to worry about.
Yeah, for most of these treasure rooms, it depends on which enemies are in there primarily, and then of course how they're placed as well. So the type of enemies, say you have teleporters, their placement doesn't really matter because sooner or later you're probably going to encounter them because they're going to teleport on top of you or away from you or something like that. Whereas if you have, say, Hades chariots, those only move horizontally, and that radically changes how you can and will approach a treasure room.
Speaking of treasure rooms, a nasty room for traffic talks. The
Yeah.
nastiness doesn't really come from the enemies themselves, though. In this case, it's just the way that he has to just spend a lot of time trying to work around it if he wants to get any of the items that are in here. It's a good thing he looked. He just
Oh.
found a deadly rod, which is a pretty
Wow.
darn big deal.
I was about to say that was. I would have not explored that treasure room, but it worked out very well for him.
I believe I saw a red saber too for another person. I think it was for the Roth.
So I noticed he doesn't immediately equip it. So one of the rules guys, so Shadow Creek or
He just
whatever. Okay, so just to be clear, I think that the previous rules from the wildcard race, so the 10 points for not equipping a deadly, are null and void in this one. That does not exist. Am I correct in that assumption? So these were wildcard only goals. Yeah, okay, that's correct. Wildcard only goals in this one. Deadly items don't matter anymore. We only see all the other goals that you can see on the score sheet.
Now, there are some perks to not putting on a deadly weapon, like Squealer just found a fatal pick. He may not want to slap that on right away because, one, he doesn't have a curse lifter, and two, it does give him the ability to leave the equipment slot open on Artie for some other gear. In particular, the Dragon Spear can make quick work of having the high agility boost early on, allowing him to fire off some spells or do some runaway attempts before enemies try to push you out. I myself have had a few situations where I found a Dragon Spear early on and had a Deadly Rod. With other dead party members, I've been able to equip it to Artie and just have him outrun everything until floor 60. It's not like that's something likely to happen here, but it is a backup strategy that in a pinch you could work with, where if you put the Deadly Rod on, you're stuck and you don't have anything to do. Especially with the fact that you could get forced to have to engage in battle against some undead enemies where the Deadly Rod doesn't even work.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, you can't really count on the Dragon Spear appearing anywhere, so most people, I guess, would actually go with just equipping the Deadly Rod directly. Of course, the Fatal Pick is a bit of a different animal because it does not have the fractional IP attack, which I guess we'll cover now or later. I don't know which one you want to go with. So yeah, the Deadly Rod is better in that regard. Otherwise, as far as instant kill chances go, both weapons are exactly identical. In the cursed version, anyway.
In terms of distance into the cave, we're seeing a pretty big gap now between our runners starting to form. We've got Squealer almost in the 30s, which is a pretty big deal. He's starting to avoid the evil fish, which drop the charm fruit for the bonus, but I don't blame him. You need a lot of preparation to take those guys on. And we've got 3 runners in terms of Dank Meets Mike, and the Rother, who are still in the 20s and below, so there is a bit of a gap forming here. That can change pretty quickly. The party rooms that you start to see in the 30s can really suck away your time, in the 40s especially. When you have assassins and ninjas that charge you, that can slow you down a lot, and they'll be appearing pretty soon. So don't count the others out just because they're 5 or 10 floors behind.
Yes, I want to cover something that's been asked about in chat. So this is actually a typical roguelike in that floors are generated completely randomly, but enemies and weapons are dished out depending on how deep you go, so to speak. There's another shield for Dank Meats as well, just to mention that. So
And a curse
the randomness... Oh, very well. The randomness does apply to everything that the players have to do here. So player skill is elemental in basically that you get the full roguelike experience of having to judge the situation and act accordingly every single floor that you enter. And therefore I wouldn't say this is entirely random by a long shot. Like this, you cannot compare this to a randomizer in that players don't have any expectation on what's happening. Instead, it's more of a constant challenge of reevaluating your situation and acting upon that.
Yeah, the exciting thing about this is that you can look at pretty useful strategies. Kriegspire, who did so much to assist in just the setup of this event, has done a lot in terms of putting together a guide that is more or less a Bible in terms of information that can be reliably utilized to figure out how you can deal with certain things or certain outcomes that might hit the cave. For instance, every so many floors, you know what enemies are going to appear on those ranges of floors. You just don't know how many, where they'll appear. You don't know the layout of the floor, and you can assume what the contents of the items in the chests will be, because while the contents of a blue chest can be the same on any floor, the contents of a red chest will increasingly vary the deeper you go into the cave until you get to floor 60, where the final item enters the pool of what could appear in a red chest. It's a pretty big deal just knowing where things can be, so where the problematic areas of the cave are, such as the floors where blue mimics appear, like where Squealer is right now, and the floors where blue cores appear, which will be coming up fast from 32 to 34. Not only the location of the items and the enemies as they'll spawn are would be considered an important factor, but also how the enemies behave is a very important factor too. Knowing what enemies are teleporters and can zip around from door to door, or can even jump from room to room. Knowing what enemies aggro you and from how far they aggro you. Some of the larger enemies, like you may be comfortable or familiar with the Archfiend sprites, which are a 2x2 enemy sprite rather than a 1x1 like you're seeing most of the enemies around here. They'll aggro you based on their bottom left tile of vision. And that's a pretty big deal, just knowing those little bits, letting you take one extra step for safety when you think you don't have that. So those little bits of expertise that we're going to see our runners today really showcasing as we get deeper and deeper into the cave. I'm excited to see some of those really cool movement strats.
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of expand on what you just said, if that sounds like pretty alien to you and you play the game before or something and you think like this looks remotely interesting, as Eli's mentioned, Kriegsguide is probably the best starting place for new runners to just get a feeling of what the run is all about, other than of course watching players on Twitch doing runs. So if you want to get into that whole thing, if that's interesting to you, of course check out the runners if you want, and or join the Discord that probably someone can post a link into chat, and yeah, you can just hang out with our people like in the cave here. And there is Roth finding champion, so we're looking at 4 players having champion now. Do I follow that correctly?
I don't know if you saw Dank Meats just picked up Rally, which is a pretty big deal.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, for people discussing it in the chat right now too, there's a variety of ways that you can kill the jelly. The most traditional and safe way to do so would be to have a Decker Blade, and therefore having Decker in the party would be expected. That's why he's in the party for starters. The other things that you can find, like a Myth Blade, an Old Sword, and the Deadly Rod, as well as the Gorgon Rock, they deal damage in terms of fractional amounts, which are a big deal, but you can score additional points by killing the jelly, of course, and getting your 100 for that. If you kill the jelly without using Fatal Blow, that is an additional 50 points. It's going to be extremely difficult to do, but you can supplement it through, say, a Myth Blade and an Old Sword Cancer Rock combo or something like that. There definitely are ways to do it. If you do it in 2 turns, it's going to be pretty unlikely to do it in 2 turns without Fatal Blow, but if you do a kill in 2 turns with or without, then that's an additional 20 points there. And that can be done through a combination of using some of the more optimal options, and pretty much requires that you bring Guy for a Decker Blade and Gades Blade combo, or just some other high damage combo, or just be an obscenely high level, which is very possible. And if you manage to do it before the 2-hour mark, which I'm wholly expecting many of our runners to be able to do so if they do indeed make it to the jelly, then you get an additional 10 points there, plus 5 points for every 15 minutes before the 2-hour mark. So for instance, kill at 1 hour and 44 minutes will be an additional 5 points because it's 15 plus before the 2-hour mark.
That's right. So all that applies for this tournament, right? So normally when we would do runs, we would just try to get to the jelly as fast as you can, basically running through the cave and trying to pick up experience as easy as you can. So mostly from cores, which I'm sure we've seen, but I actually managed to miss every single core battle so far. There is going to be another chance for me to see one of those though in a couple of seconds for some of these runners. And you're basically just trying to open as little chest as possible, run all the way down, and kill the jelly as fast as you can. This tourney thing we got going on here is actually just a way to make this both more finishable, because while it's not completely random and skill is involved, it's still not a very marathon safe run in its normal shape and form. So this does make it a bit more finishable and also more approachable to beginners.
We had some interesting things happen there while you were explaining that. We found an Iris armor on Squealer's inventory, which is pretty neat. Traffic Talks got a second Curse Lifter, which gives him a lot of options, later on especially, for giving 2 of his characters a deadly weapon. That will be a real good help in the later floors and may allow him to more efficiently go towards that gold bonus of getting 700,000 plus by killing dragons for both the EXP and the money. We saw an interesting party room with Dankmies, a lot of scary enemies, teleporters, and such in there, so he needs to be very careful plowing through that room, even though the stairs are in there. And yeah, there's just a lot of interesting things going on. A Cancer Rock for Mike, which can be very, very useful later on, especially if paired with a powerful weapon on Guy.
Same for
an old sword. It's a lot to think about.
Right, same for Traffic Talks, actually. He also got a Cancer Rock.
Traffic Talks is looking very, very good for coming up later. He's got Champion. He doesn't yet have a Revive spell, but he's got so much in terms of other useful things that I'm not too worried about things going to arrive for him, at least for a little while.
Yeah, everyone's got a healing by now. I've been told by chat quite some time ago. So again, for everyone keeping track of items in chat and helping us out, thanks for that as well. That's very helpful. If you've seen any previous commentaries, there's a lot you're gonna miss while talking about other things. So that really helps out. Feel free to do so. And there is the course on Traffic Talks' screen that I talked about. So these guys have very high physical defense, very low magical defense. So you usually cast a spell on them, they will die 100% of the time, and they drop you an insane amount of experience compared to every other enemy on the same floor.
Speaking of enemies that you want to cast spells against, you'll see Mike killing evil fish, which are just a handful of octopi. They drop the elusive charm fruit, which is necessary to turn Blaze into his M form, or his ultimate form. Fortunately, the fact that he has Firebird is extremely, incredibly useful, because it can just kill 2 of them in a single cast. He doesn't get the charm fruit there, and as you can see, even though he killed 2 of them, the other 2 really shredded his party, leaving him to the point where one more attack would have been pretty killer. And their only attacks include a party-wide hit for a pretty high amount of damage, 8-legger, or Octo Ink, which is what's a confusing attack or sleeping. I can't remember what the status is. It's not very commonly happening attack.
Yeah, I think it's confused. Not just is it not common that they use it, but it's also very uncommon for runners to encounter those guys, because it's one of those enemies that you normally would be having a very easy time evading. So yeah, if there is no tournament goal telling you that there is 5 points in for their drop, then you probably wouldn't mess with them a whole lot.
Well, in this case, it would be 10 points, because if he was able to reach or get the item and then feed Blaze up, that would be a plus 10 bonus that he'd be getting.
That's true. In Mike's case specifically, yeah.
Oh yeah, because he had Firebird, it was worth the shot. If he didn't have Firebird, I doubt he would have gone for it at all. Especially because he has Artie, who is one of the... is the only character in his party that can use fire magic. You can use something like a Burn Sword, Red Saber, Fire Dagger. There are ways to get fire-based attacks out, but without having a spell that can target multiple of them at once, and seeing that they come in groups of 4 pretty commonly, it's either if you have Firebird, try it, only if you feel brave, and otherwise just let him run away.
Yeah, the other part is that it's very tricky to get a guaranteed first strike on them, so I guess just to go into that very quick, you see enemies walking around on the map like there is actually no random encounters in this game, and if you encounter an enemy from their backside, then you get a 100% surprise attack. If you encounter them looking into their side, so to speak, you get a 50% chance, and the same is true the other way around for enemies. So yeah, for an enemy that always moves when you move as well, like the squid, they never stop and they run into a wall or something, it's very hard to find a situation where you can get a guaranteed back attack on them. But Mike seems brave enough here to risk it.
He's not getting any luck though with the drop, and that's pretty
Unfortunately.
unfortunate. A deadly rod for Travatox, even though I think he already has one, but heck, he's got two.
Yeah,
Decent
I think
pet
he has
food there.
one.
Now, the one rough thing about what just happened with all those Firebird casts is that Mike just dropped 80 MP in casting Firebird 4 times. And if you don't have a lot in terms of magic recovery items, that can set you up in a rough situation where if you don't have the ability to recover your MP, then you're limited on your heals. So even if, again, you do have the ability to get it, you may not have the sustainability to last much longer after you burn so much MP killing them in the first place, but they can't set 5 points.
Yeah, but I mean, while that is definitely true what you said, might just be worth the risk here in his case. Oh, an Iris Sword for Traffic Talks. It might be worth the risk in his case because, as you said before, it also counts for the capsule on M-Form goal, and that is just... It seems like his core strat, so to speak. And it looks like we got another run with a lot of Iris items here from what I can tell.
The 4th Iris item I've seen so far this run.
Yeah, there is 4, and they're equally distributed amongst everyone except for Roth at this point.
We see Travatox lagging against Bryn's Lizards. They dropped the infamous Whip Duel. We can assume that he is probably not doing any kind of RNG abuse in the background, and his stream is just lagging due to being from the other side of the planet. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. But something else that we see happening is that Dankmeat's just fed up his Fumi to Form 2. That does serve a couple of perks. Gels being in his second form doesn't offer a lot more in terms of battle potential. It does clear out a little bit of his inventory, which means that he can grab more chests without having to worry about the items kind of forcing themselves back into the chest. So he did want to have to clear his inventory eventually. And if he's feeding up, that implies that he does have the secret fruit, which I don't remember seeing, but I could very well have just missed. If he can get himself up to the Golden Fox form, then you'll have a pretty exciting pet for the Chili fight.
I didn't pay attention to it either, unfortunately. So Mike here had to go past a Blue Mimic and actually saw 3 Blue Mimics in that fight. He only had to run from them. He didn't have to kill, unfortunately. But that was a... Yeah, non-encounter you want to have, and now he finds himself in a treasure room that looks even even worse. So,
unfortunately, the enemies here are pretty much all weak to fire. But again, if he doesn't have the MP restorative capabilities to keep everything up, then he's gonna have a real hard time just plowing through this place quickly.
Yeah, it looks like Traffic Talks has connection problems, so that might get fixed very soon. Let's hope. And there's a curse lifter for Roth.
I really need a curse lifter tracker.
We're just doing the ninjas.
There are a lot to think about.
Yeah, so the Blue Mimics are infamous for being enemies that are way too strong, relatively speaking, to every other enemy on their floors. So when you're speedrunning, you're definitely going to notice those guys just decimating you if they don't play the way you want them to. They have an AoE attack that will just grind down on all your characters simultaneously. And even if you survive the fight, if you hit 1 or even 2 of those, then you're going to look at a lot of healing that you got to do. Something of the sort is true for ninjas as well, that Squilla just had to fight. So...
in terms of roadblocks, Blue Mimics really are the first, the ninjas really are the second roadblock. And then after that, sort of smooth sailing until the 60s, where you see a lot of other quirky enemies that are beatable, but if things go wrong, can very easily burn your party down very quickly.
Yeah. So ninjas appear from 44 to 46, and mimics are from 29 to 31. So those are quite a number of floors in difference, and that also explains the points difference that you see below the runners. So that score is updated in real time. Shoutouts again to our points keepers, as Shadow has done in the beginning. And However, you have to know when watching this that the players being ahead of the other ones don't necessarily. Wait, I'm gonna start that over again. If every player would be at the same floor, they would probably have more equal scores than what you can see here, is what I try to say. So some of these players are being ahead, and that is basically the reason for their advancement in points as well. And if you want to know what the points are about, the exclamation mark points command has just been used in chat. Click on the link there and you can see the table of the goals to apply to this tournament.
Speaking of this tournament, Travitox is back in the tournament. It looks like his stream is back up. It looks like he lost his internet connection entirely, so everything's back up for him, which explains why he's back. We see Dankmeat's in a pretty precarious room. A lot of enemies in this particular setup just move in straight line paths, except for the teleporting blonde vampires or Nosferatus here, so he needs to be pretty careful in terms of not dealing with them. Now, he very strategically opened the chest, if you just saw, where a teleporting enemy appeared below him, but him opening the chest facing up turned him around so he could celebrate getting his item, and then it put him into battle facing it rather than continuing to face upwards.
Oh, and we see a very interesting siren fight and a showcase of why those are a couple of enemies that you don't want to get surprise attacked by. Because Travitox could escape here because he wasn't surprise attacked, but if that had happened to him without, with the sirens getting the first ring, getting a free round without him being able to escape, he would have been in there for a long time, especially, like he had to wait until all his characters wake back up. And that is known to literally take minutes of your time.
A strange quirk to runaway mechanics in this game is that if you input the command to run away, but the enemies outspeed you and inflict statuses like paralyze, confusion, or sleep on you, because the game looks at the runaway input as kind of like a separate action from your individual unit actions, if your entire party is asleep or paralyzed or whatever, then the runaway still occurs. So you can be safe, at least, in being able to input that action first. But if you get surprise attacked, like RC was saying, then you're stuck in a situation where you could be impacted in such a way where you don't get the ability to hit that runaway button, and then that prevents you from being able to do much other than just sit there and watch a movie while your team gets blasted with statusing elements continuously.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely... I mean, I can't help but doing this shit.
Not that personally, would you? I said you wouldn't have a personal connection with anything like that, would you, RC?
I mean, let me quickly change topics. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, I just want to give a quick shout out to players really racing down the cave here. So, you have 2 hours to finish this run, no matter what you do. This race is probably going to take 2 hours unless one of the other guys, like every other person, also finishes. So we're looking at Travitox here, who is already at the 50 floors, I think. Other people are already at the 40 floors, and we're only 38 minutes in. So I don't know. I don't want to say that they're going too fast, but there is definitely a way to play this safer. But everyone seems to be under the impression that they really need to nail this one and really need to be able to throw down a very good run here. And yeah, that just goes to show what I suppose, I mean, that's my suspicion anyway, that that's their motive. No one really assumes they can easily win this. I would be surprised if that was anyone's opinion here.
The benefit of going fast means that you have more time in the later floors to dance around the larger and scarier enemies. But it also means that you don't have the time to have grabbed a huge variety of chests in the earlier floors that could really make a difference to winning those fights. So while you're not getting a ton in terms of EXP, you're boosting up your item pool with deadly rods and snow swords, like Dankmeat respectively found. Nice. Unfortunately for Mike, he cannot equip that snow sword, but he does have it, and it's great pet food at the very least.
Yeah, so Wrath in the meantime gets a green core and the blue core. So the green cores are probably the most important enemies in terms of gaining experience during any run, and he actually gets another green core here. So that's actually, yeah, something he's gonna be relying on for the rest of this, because the more levels you have, obviously, the more HP your characters have. That is very important. You also gain some agility from it, which helps you escape enemies and just act before the enemies act. As well as being able to escape from enemies. Did I already say that? I'm not sure. But anyway, escaping from enemies is really important as well. So Traffic Talk's now almost on the 60s floors. On the next
cores, which is a pretty big deal if you can get kills of them.
Yeah. Fortunately, he doesn't get any. But that is basically the next step up from green cores. So just to give you an idea of how much experience those guys give you, red cores are 2,222 experience. Then the blue cores are 11,111. The green cores are 33,333, and the no cores are 55,555. So, yeah, relatively speaking, the green cores get you the most bang for a buck, so to speak.
The excitement behind no cores is that the floors that the no cores are on also happen to be the floors that the high Hydoras are on, and those are the last chance that you have for getting a Hydora rock that allows you to do the triple attack with somebody like Guy, who normally doesn't have access to a 3x attack outside of the lizard blow. So there's a lot to hunt for in floors 58, 59, and 60. The no cores are a great perk that you can find while looking for the Hydora rocket's insurance.
And
another
we saw
box, by the way. Holy moly, that's 2 for him.
Very nice. We saw Traffic Tux get Ice Walk earlier, so I would have assumed he's killing Hidoras left and right. I haven't seen him done that, and Mike actually just found Ice Walk as well. Whereas on Squealer's stream, you can see Hidoras in the battle screen, so those are the enemies you're looking for in terms of dropping the Hidora Rock, which is, to tie this bigger picture here together, the runners are looking for certain items to help them kill the jelly, and the Hidora Rock just lets you get 2 additional attacks in for any given character.
It also boosts your attack power by a little bit compared to the Cancer Rock, which effectively does the same thing, but over the course of 2 turns rather than all at once, and does not boost your attack power.
Yeah, and Hidora Rock actually boosts your agility as well. Whereas Cancer Rock only boosts your defense, which arguably is not very much of an important skill unless, attribute, unless you have a lot of it.
It is a -10 damage per hit on you because of the 20 defense boost, which is nice, but usually 10 points is not the make or break number that you're going to have to be dealing with.
And it should even be -5, right? Because it's divided by 4?
It's closer, yeah, you're right, it's -5. But still, it's just inconsequential, especially when you get to the point where enemies are slinging out spells like Thunder and Stardust Blow and just doing such high damage that,
Exactly.
Barely there. Now, the
although, that being said,
you can compare it, equip it equally with an old sword, and that gets you an additional attack plus a fractional attack, and that's a pretty cool combination to roll.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say we've seen a couple of not runs but encounters before in the wildcard race that ended with characters just being at 3 HP or 7 HP or something like that. So every once in a while, every once in a blue moon, those defense differences are actually gonna matter. But yeah, most of the time, first of all, there is no way for you to know, so you're not gonna care about it. And yeah, most of the time, no defense in the world is going to save you.
Speaking of defense and other items that are pretty cool that can affect that, Roth found 2 magic fruits, and if you're familiar at all with how feeding in this game goes, is that if you drop food into the stomach of a pet, it feeds it up and it helps its stats go up a little bit. But the magic fruit is unique in that no matter what, it gives 8 out of 32 pegs worth of food or hunger or whatever you want to call it in this game. So the fact that he found 2 means that if he does decide to feed up his pet Gusto, which could still happen if he wants to try to get it up to an M form by killing behemoths for the Earth Root later, he does have a very quick ability to feed it. It does make it a bit bulky, and a quirk to how defense works for 2 of the capsule monsters, Gusto and also Darby, who we're not seeing featured in this tournament, is that if they are faster than the enemy that's attacking them, they have a chance just to flat out dodge the attack, which is something that you can't actually really do in this game otherwise. For instance, if you see mist, like on Squealer's screen, it just means that you did 0 damage, but Gusto and Darby with their dodge mechanic actually can't dodge attacks compared to just seeing the mist doing too little damage. Just a quirk in the system. So fun engage ring for traffic talks, which is exciting. Yay, that makes 2, I suppose. It's not a very good ring. Even if you can equip it, it's useless.
Those engage rings always seem to come in pairs now, don't they?
Mm-hmm. We do get a green core for Mike, which is pretty good because he is just coming out and about of the ninja floors, so the fact that he has the EXP here will give him that little bit of extra insurance to survive. Meanwhile, a very scary encounter with a Lunar Bear for Squealer puts his party in very low parameters there. Decker barely surviving with 38 HP. Everyone else taking a wipe. Those bear sprites, they may not look too intimidating compared to the dragons, multi-headed beasts like the Hydras that we see right here, but they can really shred your party hard because they have just a few AoE attacks that deal a ton of damage. It's pretty difficult to mitigate the damage from them, and they tend to come in pairs. And lastly, they're also pretty fast, so you're not usually able to beat them up.
Yeah,
and
so
your deadly rod is unfortunate.
And I'm seeing traffic talks on floor 71 here already, so I had missed if he got some amazing jelly kill here, if he got it. However, he seems determined to get down to jelly as fast as he can. Maybe he decided at one point to just abandon every other strat and just go for a PB here. I don't know. He's definitely on a very impressive pace here, and yeah, it's definitely in contrast to some of the other runners who, again, I'm not saying they're worse off because they're slow, not at all. Playing it safe here to some extent is definitely what you need to do to play it well, slow and steady, but at the same time,
In the context
that's definitely a great pace.
Kind of what you do. You just run through the cave, grabbing what you find along the way. You don't really go out of your way to look for stuff outside of maybe a core here and there. And this is how you get those sub-hour runs, is by sort of behaving the way that traffic is going there. Outside of one little bit here and there, you're really not going out of your way for EXP, nor are you going out of your way for stuff to get the kill with. You pray for a Decker Blade that's right next to the stairs or something, and then actually open it and get it.
Yeah, so if Traffic Talk's idea is to give us the full cave experience showcase here, then definitely kudos to him.
Speaking of the full cave showcase, we got some interesting battles going on that showcase some variety of the enemies in the 40s, 50s, 60s. We have Surfakos on the Roth's screen, and they're an enemy that goes 3 times or can use a pretty powerful AoE. You kind of pray for the AoE because they hit very, very hard. Because they will outspeed you, they're pretty scary, but they do drop an elemental fruit. So sometimes you might be forced to fight them, but if you're bringing Sully, they do offer the breeze fruit, which can be worth a couple of points if you're using him in the context of a run like this. Again, we had the Brinz Lizards on Neat's screen, which dropped the Twist Jewel. They're pretty safe to kill, especially if you have fire-based attacks or anti-flying based weaponry like a bow or a flying blow or something. So they're not too hard, but in context of EXP, they give about as much experience as a red core. So you're really not getting a lot from them if you don't get the drop out of it.
Ooh, Mike and
Mike.
yeah, back attack by Iron Gorms there, unfortunately. So as you can see, those guys can beat you up pretty badly, but I mean, at least 3 of his characters survived, so it could have been worse.
Meanwhile,
And the good
Squealer's fighting Behemoths, which drop an Earth Fruit. If he does get the Earth Fruit, then it makes worth feeding Gusto, because he can get that M form bonus.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's probably not worth feeding Gusto, I guess. Gusto's famously not a very useful capsule, known to steal you a lot of time during your run, which is also the reason why you get 10 points for using Gusto in this race and only 5 points for Gels or Blaze that are actually used by Dank Meats and Mike here, respectively. But yeah, every other runner has chosen Gusto, so there's the entire bottom row here. And yeah, I mean, just getting the 10 points difference might just well be worth the time, because let's be fair, all these runners here, unless they're getting screwed by the cave, they're not going to need the 2 hours necessarily to finish this run. As you can probably tell by Traffic Talks. I'm not going to make any bets whether he's going to be able to kill the jelly, but he's already pretty much on floor 80. He's one floor below that, or above that, I guess you could say.
And once he gets to floor 89, then he'll be in the dragon-only floors, or not dragon-only floors, but
yeah.
the
88 actually.
The dragons or the teleporting wizards, dark summoners. That means the archfiends are gone. He finds a flame shield along the way, which can help. Now, Roth is feeding up his Gusto quite a bit, but he doesn't have the Earth Fruit, so it's interesting as to why he's feeding up. He may be going to try to farm that reliance of Gusto being a dodge tank, in the case that it can maybe give him a little bit of extra bulk when dealing with some more dangerous enemies coming up. But it's not going to offer him too much in terms of points if he can't get the darn Earth Fruit to feed it up anyway.
Yeah, fair. Meanwhile, Meats is going through several stages of foam on Gels.
He's also got a pretty nasty party room to go through.
Yeah. Oh, and Traffic Talks is fighting some Archfiends here, so these are very infamous enemies in the cave. They have close to 3000 HP. They attack 2 times each, and I'm actually pretty sure that they got the best of Traffic Talks here. Yep, that's right.
That is unfortunate.
So
he does have a pretty significant point lead still, leading by 25, and given how his speed was a few minutes ago, he very well could make it back to the floor again with the same incredible pace if he gets fortunate, but he doesn't get to take any of the loot chest items with him because he died. Like that flame shield he just found, which would have been very useful for Maxim, is just in the dust now. One quirk though for the points is that it does open up his Iris item pool back. Because the way Iris items are spawned, you can only ever find 1 per floor, and if you take them out with you, then there's less that would be in the pool. But now the Iris, I think it was Shield that he found earlier, is technically back in the item pool, so he gets the ability to, well, find it all over again and get points for it again. So don't count him out just because he had to restart. He can definitely make up some good distance and find some good stuff along the way.
yeah, at the same time, it is very hard to get there. So I mean, kudos to him at the very least for making it once. I dare not to think of it how stressful it's going to be to do that twice. But there's just, I mean, for some enemies like Archfiends, you can always get in a situation where no matter how well you're prepared, they can just screw you over. And in his case, he got, I believe, 3 times Thunder or even 4 times Thunder. Having an additional let's say 5 levels or something, or even 10 levels, or some extra gear, wouldn't have necessarily saved him from that battle. So yeah, I will not say that he was going too fast, but going fast probably had something to do with what happened in the end. But that way, I definitely don't blame him for the decision to go fast and try to go with some extra points from that.
Yeah, going fast like that, I mean, in the context of a regular speedrun, sometimes that just happens. You're stuck in a situation where you can't survive the attacks of the thing that are trying to fight you. And you do take a little additional time to find something like a bolt shield cool, you know, if you actually do find it, but you know, that's a gamble right there. It's just as much a gamble to fight something deadly like a pair of archfiends as it is to find a bolt shield that lets you survive an additional hit or two from them anyway.
Yeah, so basically, like I said before, none of these runners here has a PB anywhere close to 2 hours. It's way below that time. As a matter of fact, doesn't everyone here have a time below sub 1 hour? Yeah, I believe they do. So yeah, the 2 hours here are basically marathon safety, right? So whenever you see Lufia being ran in the marathon, you usually see the 2 hours timer set to it. Very few exceptions. And yeah, that is for the reason that you just said. You can pick up an additional couple of items and safety, so to speak. That just, it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna get down, but
Sinister brings up a good point in chat. Travatox did just find a speedy ring and a deadly rod upon re-entering the cave, so the combination of goods there does give him, well, a heck of a lot of offense in terms of options to try to plow back through the early floors. And he's already on the core floors, and considering he entered 3 minutes ago, he is making some pretty good time for a second go through.
Yeah, let's definitely hope that he's gonna get down to, you know, relevant floors again.
Yeah.
That being said, who is the player furthest down the cave right about now?
Well, Mike is, I think, just about to enter 50. We've got Dank Meats, who looks like he's around the 60s, given the fact that there's the 2 teleporters and fiends right there.
Yeah, that's about 50 now.
The Roth just hit 60. Wheeler, I think, was a little bit ahead of them all. Water Spear for Mike is useful if you don't have a deadly rod for Artie, because it does have a pretty decent attack power. It's especially useful if you have Lexus, because it is the single most powerful weapon that he has access to, but it doesn't really do much unless you have a Cancer Rock, or better, a Hydora Rock to pair with it. And I don't recall seeing Mike get a Hydora, but I'm pretty sure he grabbed 2 Cancer Rocks. So he may, like I said, if he doesn't have a Deadly Rod, pair it with that.
Yeah, so, well, in the early floors, you're basically trying to get some good gear to start you off and some healing spells. Eventually in the run, you're going to reach the point when you want to worry about your jelly equipment. So that might be right about now for all the runners.
Speaking of jelly equipment, I mentioned earlier how there's the item pool, which features specific items that you can plan around for going into the jelly fight. Roth being at 61 means that the entire item pool has opened up to him. Floor 60 brings the Mythblade, which is the last item that enters the pool. Floors 50 bring the Old Sword and Lizard Blow into the fray, which are both very, very useful items. Not quite Mythblade useful, but Lizard Blow in terms of utility being available for everybody. And having a 3x built into it means you don't need a Hydora Rock or Cancer Rock to make a lot of use out of it. And the Old Sword is something that only the 3 guys can use, Max and Guy and Decker, but it does a pretty good 1/6 of an HP damage, and also has good attack power to boot, so it can pair it nicely with the Cancer Rock. Travatox getting beat up a little bit in the low floors, but you can see him trying to make his way back up, and Squealer trying to farm no cores, and get his last chance at a high door rock before he enters the 60+ mark.
Doesn't look like he's going for that though. And he manages to dodge those plants that have given runners quite some problems in the last run.
They're not the most deadly of enemies, but they do suck a lot of time because they can inflict status effects like sleep to the entire party. With Chris Shield for Mike, oh boy, that means he can't equip it, which goes lovely with his snow sword that he also can't equip. I bet he wished he had Tia or Salon with him now for those. He typically does run them, so that would be a little joke for him that he'll enjoy later on in the rewatch. Pretty rough party room though for him right now. Squealer finding Thunder, which is the second best spell. It's the best spell for Maxim, as well as everyone else that is not Artie. Who his best spell would be Zap, and that goes lovely with the Thunder Ring, which I don't believe anybody has found in the context of this entire event.
I'm not entirely sure, yeah. That being said, I do think the Ice Ring is referred to that even.
Yeah, the Thunder Ring has a little bit of a offensive and defensive power boost, but the Ice Ring agility, in my opinion, is worth its weight in spades compared to the Thunder Ring, even though you get a plus 120 damage or so out of Thunder with the Thunder Ring versus Iceball.
Yeah, so there is a Blaze Sword for Dank Meats. I see him going straight to the feeding screen, although he feeds something else, and I'm not sure whether Tia has a deadly red on, but if she doesn't, she could wear the Blaze Sword. And
no, only Salon can wear the Blaze Sword.
Oh yeah, you're right. Never mind.
Despite the name being Blaze,
for me to make that mistake, out of all people,
that's pretty embarrassing, man.
I know, right?
Now the Blaze Sword's confusing. You have Blaze, the fire elemental pet, and you have the Blaze Sword, which is actually a holy elemental sword. I always get a chuckle out of just the naming conventions being a little bit confusing. And the Blaze Sword is one of the most confusing in my opinion. You also have Flash, which is utilized, I think, 3 times in this game, because you have Flash, the holy elemental pet. You have Flash, the thunder elemental spell. And then you also have Flash, the IP ability from the Light Jewel, which you get completing the HUK event. Is that holy elemental, or is that non-elemental?
I don't know off the top of my head, but a certain reference tells me that it's light elemental, so there you go.
Could be.
In any case, it's a very overpowered attack compared to other things and costs very little IP. Yeah, it's definitely great. Another overused name is the Deadly Sword, which I guess also appears 3 times. Twice for the different weapons, both being named Deadly Sword, and then for the enemy. But I mean, I guess it's kind of cheating, since two of those are meant to be the same, like with Flash. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more occurrences like that, because, to be fair, the translations aren't the best in the game. But yeah, it's still enjoyable. And I mean, part of the success, I guess, of this game in mainly Europe is that it actually came translated in a couple different languages, amongst others Dutch, which is the explanation why we have so many Dutch runners in the community, I'm sure. And yeah, actually the US translation is pretty much the only really bad one. As far as I can tell. Of course, I don't speak Dutch. And also because we didn't play the Final Fantasy games, yeah, and that one weird dragon thing that no one can remember the name of course. Yeah, we all just played Lufia.
Dragon Warrior monsters, right?
Something like that, like Dragon Champion, I think someone said in chat before. That sounds right.
I'd like to point out for viewers of Travatox's side that he is still in the lead point-wise, and he has managed to get himself pretty deep in the 11 minutes that he's been active. He's about to hit floor 30, and doing that and the pace that he's re-entering in is pretty phenomenal. Of course, things can change for him just like anybody else, but it's nothing to shake a stick at. Another catfish jewel from the
Another
Rock.
catfish jewel. So when we say another, that is actually the second one he found this very run. Yeah.
Yeah, he already had points for utilizing the catfish jewels.
Yeah.
Oh, and Cat seems to have noticed the Decker Blade, or is it talking about the?
I did not see a Decker Blade drop for anyone either. But...
Oh, it's in the bot. Okay, I was thinking maybe I had missed something. That bot.
And no one got it then. So yeah, we see Squealer and Mike farming Hedoras here, trying to get that Hedora rock. And
it's not the most exciting part of the run, but after this, there's not going to be too much worth farming for either. The last things worth farming for appear in the upper 70s and lower 80s for the Gorgon Rock. And if you're feeling real bold, you can go for an old sword from the Leeches, which are the teleporting blue-robed wizard dudes. And if you feel like ending your run, or by giving the audience a show, you can definitely hunt those things, but they are not worth the time and effort for a 2% drop of a pretty okay sword.
Yeah, there's like more common 2% drops, like the Evil Jewel drops left and right, and then there is more rare 2% drops, like the Leeches, which are basically, I mean, I meant to meme there, but they're actually more rare because simply you're not gonna encounter Leeches basically ever, where you might find yourself wanting to shove a fiend.
So if you were curious about what they look like, that is on his screen there.
So most scary enemies in this game, just like the Leeches, are scary because they have insanely high agility. So that applies to Dark Summoners, Leeches, I guess Ninja to some extent, and well, mostly Blue Mimics at the time you encounter them. So yeah, for most other enemies, as long as you can't just run away from them, they're never gonna make the list of scary enemies. Or I say never, but like most of the time. But oh, and I see we are probably miscounting there, having a frontal encounter on Hedoras. He gets out of there with a smoke ball though, so he had a backup plan.
We spent quite a while working on this room, just trying to get that Hydora rock. It shows just how important the Hydora rock can be in terms of trying to get yourself a kill on the jelly. He's killed everything else in this room aside from the plants. He's danced around pretty much everything that there is. He really wants it, and it's a 20% drop, I think, from the flying Hydoras. Yeah. At Marty in the chat asking if anybody has a kill. Honestly, nobody currently has much in terms of what the inventory would expect you to have. The Ice Ring Ice Valk combo is no longer present because there isn't. Travatox ended up dying. The Deadly Rod Curse Lifter combo, I think Mike may have it, and that's about the best that there is. And he's also dancing with Hydoras right now.
And also frontally encountering them, which means not getting a guaranteed back attack, which on these enemies you can always reliably do, but of course, once you're running for time or you just find yourself to be in a bit of a hurry, that might happen every once in a while. So
now he plays things pretty safe by using a Confuse Ball on the High Hydora, the flying one. What the Confuse Ball does, as well as some of the other balls like Sleep and Freeze, is that if an enemy is vulnerable to being affected by a certain status ailment, such as Confusion, Paralysis, or Sleep, the ball item has a 100% chance to affect that status ailment to the enemy. So when you're dancing with deadly swords and deadly rods that only have an 80% chance to KO, good little insurance method to make sure that they won't do something scary to you is to affect the status ailment on the enemy. That way, in case you miss, you don't get beat up and returned for the process. So he plays it quite safe there, and he doesn't get the reward from it, but he does survive, which is quite literally the biggest reward of all.
Yeah, in the meantime, Travatox is gonna feast on a room full of cores here. So assuming he only gets like a quarter of those, which is their expected chance to stay because they have a 75% escape rate, he's gonna be definitely very happy about that.
He just got himself a blue core and a red core. And fortunately, he has Flash, the cheap Thunder spell, so he doesn't have to worry about burning too much MP to kill them quickly and reliably.
Yeah.
But bear in mind, again, he's only been back in the cave for about 15 minutes now, and he's already at floor 32, 33. So of course he does have a lot to continue making up through, but it just goes to show that these runners, with their talent, can really come back from a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the all-in finals race, right? So no reason to hold back, no reason to, not try your more risky strats if you feel like you have to.
Now Mike found a Dia ring, which is another ladies-only equipment that he cannot give to Tia or Salon. So comparing that, or compounding that with his Christ Shield and his Snow Sword that can't be used, that's actually quite a bit of defense that he just doesn't have access to.
Yeah, and of course with the Dia ring, that would have yielded him 5 points as well if he equipped it.
Right. So Squealer hitting 461 means that he no longer has access to the Hydoras, nor does he have access to the cores. So he only has the Gorgon Rock drop left to farm for, unless he wants to go for money. So he may be trying to avoid as many battles as he can, unless he just wants to bulk up his wallet or his experience a little bit.
That's actually, to bring that up again, if you want to check out the points, which is what we're talking about all this time, and what you can see below the run streams, you want to look at the ! points bot command in chat. So you kind of have a chance to follow what's going on here in greater detail than just seeing the points below the runners. And yeah, and we do see a bit more action here. So as you said before, Eli, after the 60 floors, or at the end of the 60 floors, you kind of don't want to farm anything anymore. As the previous commentators have mentioned, this is where the drop chances equal out in the chest. So up until floor 60, new items get added. The last item being the Myth Blade. But from this point on, you can, like, every floor has the same chest contents as any other. So there is no real reason to stay on any floor longer than any other, except for when you, need to fight your way through a treasure room, or you want to farm a specific enemy. Oh, very nice. That makes 5 Iris items in total.
In Rally for Traffic Talks, he is flying back through the cave. He's almost into the 40s, dancing with some assassins, but he found a Cancer Rock, he found Rally, a Deadly Rod with a Curse Lifter. He is surprised.
And the Terminal Blue.
The Terminal Blue, of course. Also, Dank Meats and Squealer are, I think, 1 floor apart. You can see that their points totals have actually equalized out as well. The two of them are running very close to each other, and their performance has been pretty spot on for what the Ancient Cave really requires of a runner. So they're both doing very well. Mike just a little bit behind where those two are, but he's still doing quite well. His point total, even though he's a little bit lower in the cave, has been made up for through copious Iris item grabs. And our first Decker Blade of the day comes from Dank Meats right now. Hot diggity.
He's going with some interesting movement strats there as a thanks for that. And it looks like there is a single Nodrome on the Roth's floor, so I guess I'm gonna keep an eye out for that, whether that's gonna make a meaningful difference, and if it does, I'm gonna talk about it more at that point. And if it doesn't, you will never know.
Well, let's just say, needless to say, this game obviously has a few quirks in its translation. It doesn't have too much in terms of glitches as far as game-breaking bugs or anything, but there are a couple of little quirks that can be found in the entire game right here in the Ancient Cave, and one of them involves stairs not appearing. the stairs are always going to appear. It's just a matter of whether or not you can get to them, I think, is the glitch. But
Yeah, and he actually has them, so yep, everything is undramatically fine.
we also saw something entertaining. You probably didn't even notice it, but in terms of glitches, the Roth's Pegasus used an attack called Air Attack earlier, and if I recall, he technically doesn't know Air Attack, or the game doesn't tell you that Air Attack is an available special move for the Pegasus, but you still can use it.
That's also a translation error. So actually, the list of attacks in the menu is or the attack name is glitched, and he actually
Ravictox as well.
Damn. Okay.
Oh my God.
I guess now he has all the reason to run, huh? He won't give up now. Merry Christmas, Lifter for Mike. But yeah, I mean, I guess other than Ravictox's untimely death, or untimely death of his run, I should say, of his first attempt, I guess everyone's pretty well off. Even Ravictox, who has really been getting back into this incredibly fast.
And this goes to show, in the context of the speedrunning community, what a quick run really can be capable of. When you're trying to just plow through the cave in record time to try to get that sub-hour run, this is what you need to do. Just run through at incredibly high speeds, not worry too much about safety strats. Opening what you can along the way and pray that you get something useful. Speaking of safety strats, though, there is something that you may notice Travatox and some of the other runners doing as they enter the stairs. You can, in this game, hold the R trigger on your controller and rotate your character, and that's useful for the game's main campaign because there's quite a few little cute puzzles where you gotta pick things up and put things down, facing in different places. But the way enemies spawn when they're loaded into a map is that they always appear, if they have a direction to face, facing downward. And you can hold the R button and hold up while doing so to face upwards, even if you enter the stairs from the side, because however you enter the stairs is the direction that you face when you load into the next floor. If you're facing upward, then it prevents you from having a situation where you're getting back attacked coming out of the stairs, and that can really be the break that you need to survive an encounter, especially against terrifying enemies like dragons and other enemies that can go multiple times per turn.
And I mean, we're talking about the ancient cave all this time. Oh, I'm sorry. But of course, the main game is also something that's a very play-worthy RPG from its time, and actually, unlike many other RPGs, I will say, it stood the test of time. It's still a very fun game nowadays. So, yeah, if you haven't played it, definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, the Ancient Cave is available through the main game, but you have strict limits on who you can bring into the Ancient Cave. For instance, Tia cannot actually enter the Ancient Cave.
During the regular playthrough.
During the regular playthrough, right. But you, for instance, can bring her in through gift mode, which is how all these players are running. You cannot bring a combination of Artie plus Decker into the Ancient Cave. You can only bring one or the other. And Salon and Guy are always in your party when you get access to the Ancient Cave, and you can either have those 3 plus Decker, those 3 plus Artie, or those 3 plus Lexus. Now you can bring in the Gades Blade from the main game straight into the Ancient Cave as a quote-unquote blue chest item, even though you don't get it from inside of the cave, making it one of the only things you can bring in outside of a couple of jewels, like farmable twist jewels from the main game. So you can prepare through the main game a couple of things to bring in with you, just to make practice in this place a little bit more manageable, and then play in gift mode when you have a bit more experience. Starting off fresh, it's a neat little quirk that the game offers, and like RC said, it is a decent game. There really isn't anything wrong. The puzzles in this game are fun enough to test the mind. The battle system, as you can see from this, is pretty fun and engaging, and the story is about what you could expect from a 90s JRPG. Our third Decker Blade appears on the Roth's screen.
I was about to say that, yeah.
There is quite a bit available.
I'm not sure whether you mentioned it before, but the Deca Blade, we keep talking about that because it actually takes away more than half the HP of the Jelly, which is the boss of this run, if you want. So the final goal of this whole challenge and this marathon race. And the Jelly has 10,000 HP, more or less. Well, to be honest, to be exact, 9,980. And you only get 3 turns to beat him. So that is why a Deca Blade is definitely going to give you a great head start if you're basically the one attack from the first turn. It's going to allow you to take more than half of it away.
Now you said it does roughly 50% damage. The reasons it can do more or less occur, 1, from the randomization of damage rolls, and 2, from the position of where your party members are when they deal any of their physical attacks. If you're in the front row, you'll deal more damage. If you're in the back row, you'll deal less damage. But also you take less damage if you're in the back. So in the main fights, that's why you'll see your squishier party members like Artie and Maxim, or whatever anyone's red-haired party member is in the back row, and then the boys are in the front. In the context of a Jelly, if you do any sort of physical attack, including your fractional attacks like the Fatal Blow from the Decker Blade, there's an additional 1/8 damage just applied to it from whatever the base damage would be, so that could be pretty significant. You'll always want to lead off with Decker, who is unfortunately your slowest person, outside of very rare circumstances, but having a first turn Fatal Blow can deal, even after a couple of other attacks from party members, well over 5,000 damage. Your enemy, the Jelly, has just slightly under 10,000, and one person deals half that in one single move. Well, you definitely see the value of bringing Decker. Even if you were not to get the Decker Blade, he still has the highest attack out of anybody that can enter the cave. So when you have weapons that let you hit for triple damage, or you have a Hydora Rock, or you have Gady's Blade, which lets you hit up to 8 times, having a person with sky-high attack means that you're capitalizing on those multi-damage or multiplier-based damaging moves that much more.
Yeah, so because Trevik Talk's not opening a chest, it's being discussed in chat, so I'm not sure if he has a kill. I didn't see him have a definitive anything in that regard, even though he has a very good starter kit. And a very interesting ninja counter here. Actually, we talked right before the race about some ninja movement because that's been discussed in the last couple of days, and I know what he was going for there, but unfortunately it doesn't work out.
Did Mike just find a Gage Blade?
Oh, I'm not sure. Really? It looks like.
I think that's nice. Is that our first of the? That's our first Gage Blade of the day.
Of the day, yeah. Not of the tournament though. We've had a couple of those. So yeah, the Gady's Blade definitely, other than the Decker Blade, the other infamously good item. So anyone with Decker and Guy in the party is able to use both, and yeah, the Gady's Blade does basically 8 attacks in one round, so 10 attacks in total, which is more than the 3 attacks you would normally get. So obviously you can do the math. It's 7 attacks better than any regular weapon, which is pretty good.
Now, it's not the most powerful weapon by far. For instance, the Gage Blade has, if I recall, 200 attack power, but the Myth Blade has more than double that. The Old Sword has double that. So, I mean, there are more powerful weapons to have multipliers based off of. But the Gage Blade is just a very simple, moderately powerful, but very burst-heavy damage in terms of its one single 8 times attack move. I believe he found Trick really early on, so having Trick to power up his Gady's Blade for a couple of turns means that if he gives that to Decker and has Artie or Maxim power out of Trick, it can really scale up the damage for that burst 8 attack move that will eventually happen. I think he still needs to find a little bit more. For instance, he may want to find an Old Sword or something just for a little bit more of a fractional damage scenario, but the Gage Blade, even with powered up from Trick abilities, is probably going to deal around 3,000 to 3,600, I think, based on whatever level he is when he gets there, and that's still a lot of damage for one person to do.
Yeah, so Mike does not have a Decker Blade yet, so if he does find that, that is definitely going to be a kill for him. I'm going to say it's pretty surely going to be a kill for him. I should probably rephrase that. And yeah, you definitely, as you said, you want to use Trick or at least some jewels or what have you to power up the attack of the Gades Blade, but even otherwise, it's a pretty surefire way of dealing a big chunk of damage.
Now, if he does find a Gorgon Rock here by farming these Gorgons, he'll have an Uncursed Deadly Rod for Artie, and you can also pair a Gorgon Rock on Maxim, and that will let them sit in the back row and deal magical damage for turns 2 and 3, and use Trick as well for some safe damage applications. There's a lot to think about, and that's the best thing about the Ancient Cave, and it's why I love running it. It's why all these other runners are running it, is because no matter how you go through this cave, you very, very rarely have the same setup twice with nearly timed runs. You run one game, you have a Decker Blade. You run another one, you may have a Gauge Blade. You run another one, you may not have either, but you could still get a kill with a few extra levels. Gorgon Rock spotted for Dank Meats, and he spawned on top of the stairs, which is a pretty cool location to spawn, especially when you're in these late floors.
Yeah.
So you see a Terror Ball get picked up by Squealer. That isn't necessarily identical to how the other status balls work that have a 100% chance of afflicting that status. It's a 50% chance of instant death, which is pretty, it may not seem that reliable, but if you've got situations where you're fighting against gold dragons and you don't have a deadly weapon for, say, both Maxim and Artie, a 50% chance item kill for, say, Guy to drop is better than just punching it for 200 damage out of its 2400 HP. So you may see the Terror Ball get a little bit of use. Depends on how many scary encounters appear later on.
Yeah, so Mike just found this Deadly Rod, and he has Curse Lifters, pretty much enough to uncurse a couple of those. So that is actually his fractional, and a pretty good one at that, because that allows him to do 2 1/8 fractionals, which is pretty good. It's not quite a 4th, but yeah, if you do the math, it's a pretty big chunk of damage. And he is definitely on his way to have a kill there. I still see him opening, so he's not entirely sure of it, but yeah, another thing to consider here is that all these runners are going to be aware of that running down and getting the jelly kill does not guarantee them the victory, right? So the first player who finishes is not necessarily the first player in the tournament in total as it's being scored. So one thing players might want to go for is the 2-turn jelly kill. So as I explained before, you normally get at a most of 3 turns to kill the jelly. But if you manage to kill the jelly in 2 turns, you get an additional 20 points for that. And that is definitely something you want to go for. Of course, if Mike gets the kill without the Fatal Blow, so without the Decker Blade, he even gets 50 points for that. There you go, very adequately named I Must Be Dreaming.
It's pretty difficult to get a kill like that in such a low amount of time with no Decker Blade, because you'll have at best 1 or 2 Myth Blades IPs that you can use, and then the Decker Blade, which only has 1 turn's worth of power up to it. You can deal a lot of damage in 2 turns, but dealing 10,000 damage in 2 turns without a Decker Blade is very, very difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, he has a Deadly Rod to give him a head start, and he might find our fractionals. I'm not sure if he has a Gorgon Rock yet, or if he's gonna pick one up. But,
Grab it.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of pacing, all of our runners are doing pretty well. Travatox has done remarkable in catching up as deep as he is into the 50s already, and the other runners are well into the 70s or the 80s, and they still got 30 minutes to go. They could take this time to really try to push the envelope and try to make it to the final floor in the next 15 minutes, which is very doable should the floors cooperate. But this is also the part of the cave where even if you're feeling pretty prepared and you have the majority of the things that you need, the game can just throw a kill at you pretty quickly. You've seen it in the last run with double Archfiends on Travatox, just outright shredding him with Thunder. You saw it in the run earlier with people just getting torn apart later on in the cave to the point where it just slows them down to the point of barely being able to make any progress. So you never really do have everything that you need. But
Well, unless you're Squealer.
Unless you're Squealer. But you can't play
from last week's race.
And try to take a little extra time. So it'll be interesting to see if any runners do make it to the jelly by the 1 minute 45 mark and try to get that 5-point bonus, or if they just opt for the safety and the time that it's going to take to grab a few extra little goodies, maybe an extra 2 or 3 levels, or maybe even the kills they would want to try to farm that gold point with.
Yeah, exactly. So that's... Go ahead.
Oh, so I also like to point out that Roth has taken the lead at 100 points. But that is a 5-point difference that can be turned around for very, very little effort by finding, say, an Iris item here and there, or just making it to a few extra floors. So having the points be this close for all 5 of our runners is just exactly what I would hope for in a finals match.
And just to add on to that, the Roth and Mike are actually the only people who are in the 80s floors according to the score sheet.
Oh, Mike the Decker Blade too.
Oh wow! All right. Well, yeah. Now, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that he has a kill now. It will be very hard to screw that one up. Now, the thing is he gonna make the 2-turn kill? And yeah, I mean, if he has Trick, that is very well in the cards. So at this point, what you're looking forward to do is basically get the best equipment you can get. Try to get IP for your characters. So I guess that's something we hadn't talked about in detail yet. So there's the orange bar you can see on the battle screen at the very bottom, and that allows you to use your weapons and equipment special attacks. So for example, the Fatal Blow for the Decker Blade. And you will need 100% of Decker and Guy, which is not the hardest to do actually for those 2 characters. But it does take a bit of time.
The most damage. They're the ones who absolutely need the full 100% IP, because there are 3 weapons that require 100% IP to use, or 2, I guess. The Decker Blade and the Gades Blade are the 2 most important ones that do. And being as Mike has them, well, you can see why he needs them. But yeah, the 2 bulkiest characters that the game has to offer. Since they're the ones who utilize these big heavy weapons, that they're the ones relying on them.
Oh, we're seeing Dank Meats fighting Orkies here, and if I saw that correctly, that was already missing a deadly horse. I expect the appropriate emotes in chat any second now, and the first destroy misses, and the second one hits. So
he does very, very use a confused ball to safely make it through. Confusing an enemy makes it so they can only use a regular attack, and they can
and that happened here,
including themselves, like you saw.
Yeah, let me just point out that Artie missed his Deadly Rod again, which means the Confused Ball was absolutely necessary because, well, not necessary to survive the run, but actually absolutely relevant in being used here, because otherwise that Orky would have gotten 8 attacks on the party, and that would have been pretty devastating in terms of having to IP farm again, because I think currently he has at full IP.
Not only that, he would not just have to recover out, but if Artie and Maxim were to have died, or some other people were to have died, then he may not get the chance to do anything on the 3rd turn that would involve surviving and killing encounter.
Exactly, so at the very least you want to have Artie survive because he outspeeds the Orky. If that doesn't happen, then you're looking at another 8 attacks, and at that point you're probably not going to survive it. So very well played from Dank Meats here. Very nice threads.
Yep, and we saw Mike do that earlier when he was facing against something else, I think the High Doras, and you didn't really get to see him benefit from the use of the Confused Ball there, but Meat's showing you just that if things go wrong, that's exactly why you prepare for something to go wrong, because you're only out sometimes. And certain enemies can't be afflicted by it, like gold and silver dragons, you can't put them to sleep or paralyze them, so it pays to use the ball when you have it, because you may not get another chance to do it later on. The genies are some effective enemies to use it against because they'll either steal your MP or they'll use a party-wide hit that can just deal a ton of elemental damage and can be difficult to recover from. And myself included, I've had runs ended even earlier in this tournament where genies just spammed their AoEs and I wasn't able to recover.
Yeah. I also am certainly guilty of gambling instead of playing it very strategically here, but just to get back to something I said before about the cave not being entirely RNG at all, it's threats like this that let these runners get down the cave here relatively consistently, as opposed to, you know, just hoping for things to go well, and if it doesn't work, then, oh well, I tried. You know, this is actually, there's a lot of strategy and knowledge involved here. And the top runners will usually acquire a lot of both of those, and that's what allows them to, yeah, basically do well at cave runs.
Well, speaking of strategies that the top runners have, Dank Meats on the top screen, top right, just got our M form of Fumi, which turns from a pile of bubbles to a slightly bigger pile of bubbles to a golden fox. And I was able to bring him into the finals last year, but he didn't really contribute all that much. He does have...
What a surprise.
I know, what a surprise. His stats are not really that great. His attacks actually include something that can be completely worthless when fighting the jelly, but he also does have the single highest multiplier base attack available in terms of his tail attack. And Bubble Blow, as you just saw on the screen, that dealt what looked like 8 damage, is not actually damage. It is a defense reducing ability, and the jelly, I believe it either has 1 or 2 defense. So
1 defense. Yeah.
1 defense. So you can imagine how reducing 1 defense by 20% will really assist the player in terms of getting a jelly kill.
Yeah, if you paid attention to our explanations before, 8 defense is the equivalent of 2 damage dealt more. So it's very arguable in usefulness, I would say. That being said, Dank fed his capsule to M forms, so he gets those 5 points regardless of how useful or not we think it is at the jelly fight.
And at this point, considering our leader is Roth with 110, but he's going through a pretty scary series of rooms, our first Dragon Con of the day, or at least of the run, the finals.
And it worked out very well for him.
Yeah, he got lucky that he was able to zip around. Everybody else is only a few floors behind him and can very easily make up the difference in points by just progressing a bit further. I'm most interested to see if Mike is able to make it, because even though he's a little bit behind, the 20-point difference can put him and Roth, if they both score identically, into the lead just from the kill alone of being a 2-turner if he can manage it properly. That's not to say anything less of the other players, though. Squealer, Dank Meats, and Travatox especially, who, if you notice, Travatox has been in the cave for a little over 35 minutes, and he's already in the 60s, has managed to catch up remarkably fast to a very scary part of the cave.
Yeah.
In about 10 floors, he'll be right back where he was, and he still has 20 minutes to go. So let this be means to you that with some practice and a little bit of hope and a bit of luck, the cave can really give you something fun to do. And this is where the true thrill comes in. Finding a Decker Blade too, of course.
The second one, yeah.
Yep. A Squealer dancing with a very deadly combination of enemies, though. Leech
Or in
and
Travatox's room. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what's worse, Travatox's double Warm Eye plus Salamander, or Squealer's Leech plus Archfiend combo. Salamanders are scary because they'll very often outspeed you, and they usually come in pairs. He got lucky here this time because 1, it didn't cast his Firebird spell, and 2, already missed. It's all by itself.
That was not the lucky part, yeah.
The fact that these guys usually come in pairs, if they both cast their Sizzle Breath or Firebird spell, they'll just wipe you very, very quickly. They'll kill both Maxim and Artie usually after a combo. Trick for Roth, by the way.
Yeah, it's very nice to have in those late floors.
Yeah, again, Trick doesn't do very much anywhere else in the cave until the very end. But the fact that you have it earlier on means that it's one less thing to worry about later and lets you plan a little bit more accordingly for trying to farm for certain items or certain weapons. For instance, you can rely a little bit more on fractionals if you don't have Trick, but if you do, then it lets you kind of look at terms of wanting to get some of its multi-hit weapons a little bit more significantly.
And Treviktak's trying to probably get this the salamander around on the top of those pack of bushes there. Unfortunately, the salamander, which is something you cannot predict, moves to the right exactly at the time where he slashes the bush and gets into an encounter. But of course, not of course, but fortunately, he only gets a single salamander again and is able to continue his run.
Now,
I think it's Thunder, which is great.
That's a good find. Now, there is a little bit of prediction you can do with enemies, such as salamanders. Yeah. Larger enemies or enemies of certain sprite types will move sideways and then, or they'll move horizontally, then vertically. Oh, sorry, a Myth Blade for Travatox. Wow.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, it's our second Myth Blade of the day, our first Myth Blade of the finals, and between his Decker Blade and Myth Blade, that too is an effective combination that could do a pretty significant chunk of damage to the jelly.
So we do see Treviktak's running here. I'm not sure what he has in terms of finishers, but assuming he got at least anything, Decker Blade and the Myth Blade is going to put him into a very good spot.
I believe he did find a Cancer Rock, so if he has something heavy to pair with a Cancer Rock, he can give Decker the Decker Blade, he can give Guy the Cancer Rock and, I don't know, a Halberd or something. He can give Maxim the Myth Blade, and Artie can just sling Thunder from the back row.
Yeah. And I mean, the Decker and the Myth is pretty much going to do like, what, 6,500 to 7,000 damage on its own, so guys all talking about just the first round, just the fractionals, so yeah, he's definitely going to be in a very good spot.
In terms of being in a very good spot, the Roth is in an extremely good spot because he's about to hit floor 99. And if you know what's going on there, that means we're going to be at the jelly. And one thing that you're always happy about is when you don't have to struggle surviving anymore. So you'll see him gearing up and getting himself ready to prepare to fight the jelly now. So he's going to take a minute here, uncurse himself, do the other things he needs to get his equipment ready for the.
Oh, meanwhile, are you right? Meanwhile, Squealer finds an Iris item.
Over BRB.
So Squealer finds an Iris item, snatches another 5 points here, and yeah, we're gonna see the Roth's jelly fight. You can probably hear the amazing music, and this is the 3-turn battle that we explained during the run, so I will focus on that for the time being. I will also do a damage calculation just for the fractionals, but if you guys want more accurate damage numbers, then please calculate those for yourself. So he uses the Devastation first, which was a pretty bad roll to be fair. But it doesn't mean this fight is over, and the Fatal Blow does like about 4,200 damage, so that's only 23% roll if I calculate that correctly. So he got 2 very bad rolls here, pretty much getting unlucky here. But yeah, we might still see a kill here. This is 6,000 damage, isn't bad, and depending on what he has, other than that, this is still a very good attempt. So yeah, Trav's back in the 80s floors. That is indeed very impressive. So not only has he managed to run all the way down there, in the 50 minutes he's had now, I think he died at 53 minutes in, and re-entered right away, so he actually managed to pick up some very decent equipment here, and yeah, it's definitely an achievement. Like, even if he does not manage to get to the jelly in time, which I mean I really hope he does, that is a very good achievement to accomplish that, getting so deep, not just once but twice in the 2 hours. Very impressive. I cannot overstate that. So, how is Mike's jelly fight looking? I assume we're looking at a 3rd turn. I kind of lost track there. Yes, so unfortunately, the Roth sorry, did not get a kill here. So you can see the jelly death animation, but unfortunately, that does not mean that the jelly has died because you need to deal the 9,980 damage and destroy the jelly yourself. And what you just saw is just the end of the game animation. So yeah, that concludes the Roth's run with a very respectable 120 points for not getting a jelly kill. That is a very high amount. So yeah, we're looking at 9,598 damage. So about 400 damage off. Is not a lot, and is definitely down to the two very bad fractional rolls he had gotten. The devastation was 6.2%, the fatal blow was 23.4%, and the third devastation I didn't even count, so yeah, that was very unfortunate. It does happen though. So let's see, I mean, there are still 4 other runners in this race. Very amazingly, Trevictux is still going very strong here. From what I saw, all these people's equipments are capable of doing a jelly kill. However, yeah, we gotta have to see what happens. I mean, just like the Wrath, you could get unhappy. I mean, you could get unlucky. I'm not sure if he's unhappy about his run, but he definitely shouldn't be. So it's just unfortunate because his setup looked pretty decent from what I saw. However, yeah, sometimes RNG just gets the better of you. So yeah, I'm reading that Squealer probably does not have a jelly kill from the equipments that he has. I guess that there was no Deca Blade in there for him that I saw, and yeah, finding anything else is going to be hard to make up for the Deca Blade. We are looking at Mike still with a 2-turn chance, so I mean, we gotta point that out. No matter how well the other runners do, if Mike gets the 2-turner, he will be 20 points ahead, which is equivalent to 4 Iris items or finishing an hour ahead of the other runners.
I had to step away because my cat knocked over something glass and it broke, but I returned, and it seems I've missed the Roth's entire jelly fight. Can you sum it up for me?
Welcome back. Basically, he did 400 damage to few because his fractional roll screwed him.
Oh, yeah, that's the one unfortunate thing about fractional rolls. Is there's a pretty high variance, and I have a tool, and RC has also built a tool that allows us to check on fractional quality, but even seeing what the numbers are, it's sometimes upsetting to see when the number turns out really low or the kill gets missed because of 2 bad rolls on your big moves.
Yeah, so I see Squealer dancing with gold dragons there. Dank Meats looks like he's trying to IP farm. I missed what killed Decker actually. It looks like Decker got killed by something, lost all his IP. That's a very unusual sight normally. So yeah, all the runners are preparing for the final stretch here. They have 12 minutes left, and I assume they all know that, so they should be well on time to get all the way to Jelly. At least that's what I would hope. Yeah, there is the famous dragon cons who might get in your way that have a room full of dragons and possibly dark summoners, which is not what you want to see in a tournament race or a run or generally ever.
And honestly, you are never safe until you are at floor 99, because there have been plenty of times that you have had the stairs in sight and you spawn in a hallway with, say, double golds or something you just cannot get through easily.
Yeah, I've heard that happens to people, yeah.
You must not remember all those times it's happened to either of us.
I remember one occasion very distinctly. It was pretty much a week ago, to be exact. But yeah, sometimes you just can't help it. But I mean, look at Trevitux going here. He's at floor 91, so even he is on the pace to get down to Jelly. From what I could see, he at least has a shot to go against the Jelly, so yeah. Just in the time I to finish that sentence, he cleared 2 more floors. Very nice. And he actually overtook Squiller here, who's only, I say only, but I mean, that's...
Being on
and
floor
slow and
89
steady, of
right
course.
now is a pretty good pace, all things considered.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Having 10 minutes to go and 10 floors to go, especially when you don't have that much else to do outside of maybe get a little more IP, means that you're in a pretty good position. Speaking of IP, it looks like Mike is ready, as well as Dank Meats. They both managed to get their IP up. So unless they want to take a little time to try to get a bit more money, they should be pretty much set. Now Mike is very much set then.
I guess the money goal is something we, or at least I have not paid a lot of attention to, so players can rack up a total of 700,007 gold for an additional 10 points. I'm not sure whether anyone has done that. And yeah, you can see it at the end of every battle. It says that the bottommost row of the whole experience shebang.
Mike is only about 75,000 gold away from getting to that 700k total, so he's really close.
Oh, okay.
He's not getting the kill now. Looks like he just wanted to top Artie up for IP, maybe to try to get 3 deadly rod uses. Or maybe he's going to give him a Gorgon. I'm not sure what he was really planning.
I'm very happy he turned around to not get back attacked by the dragon there. I was that he would do that for a moment. But yeah, 70,000 looks about right, what you said. Yeah, let's hope he has the time to do that. So again, he's full at IP, but he's probably farming for gold at this point.
He's got 9 minutes to go and a couple of floors left to do. If he can find a few safe encounters to do it with, he'll be able to get a few extra points there and bring that gap that much closer. Because again, if he does not get the 2 turn, but he does get the kill, then it very easily could be Meats or Squealer who gets the kill. Or even Travatox, who's managed to catch himself up this fast. 1 Iris item in the next couple of floors too could really turn things around for the last runners, because the scores are just so close.
Yeah. Everyone taking the same party really means that if everyone gets a jelly kill, well, pretty much the same party. Yeah. Means that every single Iris item is gonna matter as long as no one gets these special jelly kill goals. And
remember, killing the jelly before the 2-hour timer hits as well is 10 points. So
yeah,
giving maybe a 5-minute timer to kill the jelly means that it gives you enough time to try to still look for a few extra chests along the way.
Yeah, and Travatox, out of all the runners, is actually the second one to make it there. So remember, he died 53 minutes in, or something, that's what I remember. And he managed to get here in under an hour. Yeah, what a beast is very much accurate. So, I mean, if he has a kill now...
He does have a Decker Blade.
Yeah, and a Myth Blade.
And a Cancer
And a Cancer Rock.
Sorry, he has 2 Decker Blades.
He has what he needs. He also has a Great Axe, so...
The Great Axe
that's
paired with the Cancer Rock on Guy is going to be a great combination.
Yep. So while he is doing the setup, everyone else is preparing. Let's just hope they get us 1 jelly kill at a time, so we can analyze everything very nicely. I guess there's one thing that the gold farming does for these runs, at the very least it works out now. So this is going to be interesting until literally every single one of these runners has finished their jelly fight, assuming all of them can get there, of course, which I very much assume. Yeah, we see some feeding here.
This is a heck of a finale too. For everyone running or watching this run, think that in our wild card match, nobody was able to get even close to what would have been securing a jelly kill. And in this run, we've got one person that's been just within a few hundred points, and we've got 4 other people who all have a very, very good chance of getting their own jelly kills. We could very well have 4 people with 9,000 plus damage, if not, an extra 2 or 3 kills today. So that's a great way, what I would say, end the tournament.
Oh, for sure. Since you mentioned the wildcard races, of course, the wildcard players couldn't pick their own party. So obviously, them being set with like Decker, Cell, and Guy, which is not exactly what you would normally ever pick on any run, they had a bit of a detriment going on there. However, I especially want to point out, I only just realized that now that you said that, Trevitox is also the one winning the wildcard race. So not only has he ran this with Beast Mode on, he also had like only a couple minutes break before this race after winning the wildcard race before that. There's definitely, yeah, not a position that I guess is optimal compared to all the other people who have been chilling out in our Blowout lounge, having like VIP treatment, being served drinks and whatnot. You know, I wouldn't know because I'm not finals. It works somehow like that, I'm being told.
Well, assuming Mike doesn't mess anything up, he's going to be able to make it. And assuming Dank Meats doesn't mess it up, he's going to be able to make it. They've only got a few more floors to go, and their IP is set. I do need to take another look at their gold totals, because I don't quite know if Meats is close to that. And Mike did make that threshold, so that gave him the big jump up in terms of performance.
Yeah, and here goes Trevitox's Jelly Fight. So let's see what happens here.
He's gonna front row his maximum, which there he goes. Now he's gonna front row his maximum. He's gonna go for the Battle Fury, Fatal Blow combo. A decent roll.
Oh yeah, those were really good rolls.
Those are pretty good rolls. The Battle Fury was exceptional. The Fatal Blow was a little bit low, but still doing over 7,000 damage in one round of combat is stupendous.
Yeah, so I just realized I mistyped on my counter. I'm about 1,000 damage too high, so my rolls look even better than what it actually was. So,
We've got Mike getting himself ready. So this is going to be close. It really could come down to if Mike can get the two-turner. Gravitox only has about 1,000 damage left to do.
yeah, that should definitely be doable. It is definitely doable. He still has a Cancer Rock, so
Yeah, it's just a matter of how.
I'm pretty sure this is going to be a kill.
No, I'm not sure if Mike is taking his time a little bit too much here. He's getting it set up. He needs to try to secure the kill quickly.
Yeah.
Because if he wants that 2-hour sub bonus, then he really needs to step it up just a little bit.
Yeah, but to be fair, he would be missing out on that bonus if he didn't get it. Oh, and Trevitox gets the kill. Very nice. So, I mean, I already said everything about how amazing his run was here, so just gonna say GG at this point. He deserves more attention than that, but maybe we get to that later. So, while the points are being racked up for him and actually reflect that Jelly Kill and what it does to its points total, let's look at Mike's battle here.
A gigantic Fatal Blow roll.
Yes, that was 95.4%.
Yeah, that was almost as high as a Fatal Blow could possibly have been.
Yes, that's amazing. So, I mean, not only, okay, this is definitely going to be a two-turn kill if he uses the Gatie's Blade here. I missed whether he did, but I mean, it pretty surely is going to be. But yeah, he also had the pretty much best rolls he could have had. And yes, he used the Gatie's Blade here, so I'm pretty sure this is a two-turn kill.
He has about 2,100 damage going into the Octo Strike.
Yes, and Dank Meats at the same time is actually fighting the Jelly as well. So I was joking before this run that we would see 5 Jelly kills in this run, and we're actually pretty close.
We got the two-turner under 2 hours.
We got the two-turner. Very nice, dude. So, yeah, that is definitely a very amazing achievement. So that means Mike joins the amazing runners who managed to kill the jelly in 2 turns in the failed blowout run. Bankmeat's being one of those actually, and yeah, let's see how his fight goes. To be honest, I have no idea what his equips were because I was very much distracted with other things going on, but I'm pretty sure he has a plan.
He has a different setup because he has Tia, which makes things a little different. It means he has availability with 2 deadly rods, which is a pretty big deal. Although just now their uses were not exactly the best.
Yeah, but the deadly rod dealing this little damage probably means Jelly is at very low health as is. And there we go. We actually got a kill from Dankneeds here.
That is 3 jelly kills and 1 extremely close jelly kill. Plus we have Squealer right on standby.
Yeah. So Dankmeats will not get the sub 2 bonus, but regardless, that was also, I mean, yeah, what a finale! I can only quote chat there. That is very amazing what we got to see. So I mean, not only did we see all 5 players get to jelly here, which you definitely, I mean, if you're not as familiar with the runs, you definitely don't see every run. But we also seen 3 out of 4 kills so far, and maybe we're gonna see another one for Squealer here. So
I think we're gonna see a suicide here, which is still.
Oh yeah, it looks like that.
Go off. We're showing off 3 kills, a 2-turner, a suicide, round of combat anyway, and then 2 standard kills, 1 with Tia. I mean, we're seeing a lot of variety.
And a sub 1 run from Travictox. I want a sub RC run, not a sub 1, but a sub RC run from Travictox. So a very amazing showcase here. This is definitely, this range of players is definitely great to have in a finale. So, I mean, Squealer not getting a jelly kill here, he's probably not killing himself for the memes or anything, but because he just didn't find any equipment, and he used those 2 hours as much as anyone could, which means there is basically no way he thinks he could get the kill. So that also happens. You're not always lucky, even if you're Squealer. So I guess he's gonna get his Discord name changed back to normal very soon.
One other thing worth pointing out that I don't think we showed too much. The Mike kill actually featured the Deadly Sword IP getting used. Normally you won't want to do that because it's an awful weapon outside of it having the same IP attack as the 1/6 damage from the old sword. But in the context of this 2-turn, with using Trick 1 time and that ability 1 time, it gave him exactly what he needed to ensure the quick kill.
Yeah.
And in fact, the attack itself, the Octo Strike, did just enough so that way, you know, if there was 1 less attack's worth of damage or Blaze had done pretty much nothing to cooperate, Decker's final attack would have likely been enough to secure the kill. But that trick really did make the difference.
Yeah, and what you could see on Squealer here is, or in Squealer's stream, is that he actually got the same message or reward as if you had killed the jelly, which is what happens if you suicide to it, which is where that goal even comes from. So the point totals you're looking at now is probably the result of it, and I hear Shadow Killer probably wants to take over at this point. Is that right?
Yeah. My God. What a finale. Holy cow.
I know, right?
A little bit of everything in this finale.
I couldn't have asked for a better finale than this. Amazing race from everyone. You got to see 5 jelly fights and 3 kills in the finale, which is just mind-blowingly good. Whoa, I hear people.
You're so adorable.
You are adorable. Okay, so anyway, congratulations to Mike34, the 2020 Fatal Blowout champion. Congratulations, my friend. Well played. I want to give a honorable mention to Travictox because holy cow, dude, you were a monster today. Dying 50 minutes in and then making it to the jelly in just under an hour. That's incredible. Incredible. Putting it all on the line. And then Dank Meats, we're gonna have to retime his run because he killed the jelly at 2 hours 1 point and 1 second basically. So he may have gotten that bonus for under 2 hours. It won't change the standings as far as being a winner, but we want to give him the correct points. So we're gonna relook at that. And then Squealer and Roth with just incredible runs as well. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We are the Ancient Cave community. Right there, Mitchie posted the Discord. If you want to come and hang out, learn a bit about the game, have some fun. We're a pretty relaxed group who just kind of has fun with this, roguelike. It's just a lot of fun. Again, I want to thank a couple of people just real quick. First off, RPG Limit Break, Puexel, El Magus. Thank you guys so much for having us on your channel and letting us do this every year. We really, really appreciate it. Shout outs to Eve once again for all the artwork, RC for helping me with some of the layout stuff, Kriegspire for all the behind the scenes works, all the commentators, all the runners, and just the AC community for the huge support this year. This is the biggest one we've ever had. We actually had to have a few people drop out so that we could make this work. So pretty excited to have 20 racers this year. Maybe next year we'll have to expand a little bit more to get some more runners in. So once again, if you're interested, jump in the AC Discord. But other than that, that's it. Once again, congratulations to Mike 34.